A billionaire expected silence in his mansion until a little girl asked to sleep in a doghouse and turned his life upside down. The storm had rolled in quickly over Monaco. Waves battered against the glittering marina, turning the usual paradise into a dark, thunderous stage. Rain poured down in torrents, drumming against the streets and washing the perfume of wealth and privilege into the gutters. In the middle of it all, a small figure darted between the shadows of the alleys. Isabella, just 7 years old, ran barefoot to the cold rain, her thin dress clinging to her shivering body. She clutched a ragged toy rabbit close to her chest, the only remnant of a childhood stolen too early. Behind her, voices had shouted, boots had pounded on pavement. Men, dangerous men. She had escaped them by slipping through a fence, but she knew they weren't far. Her lungs burned, her legs ached, but she couldn't stop. When she finally lifted her eyes, she saw it, the Hale estate, a grand property rising above the coast, gates tall as a fortress, lights glowing warmly from within. It looked like something from another world, one she had only ever glimpsed from a distance. She pressed her small body through the bars of the gate, scraping her skin but too desperate to care. Across the vast manicured garden, she spotted a small wooden structure near the hedge, a doghouse. Crawling toward it, soaked and trembling, she whispered to herself, maybe just for tonight. At that very moment, the gates opened. A sleek black car glided up the driveway, headlights cutting through the storm. Damian Hale, billionaire real estate mogul, had returned home. At 45, Damian was known for his ruthlessness in business, his influence across Europe, and his cold detachment. But tonight, as he stepped out of his car, adjusting his coat, he was simply a man tired of empty halls and endless meetings. Then he heard it, a tiny, quivering voice from the shadows. Sir, may I sleep in your dog's house tonight? Damian froze. His estate had no dog. Slowly, he turned, scanning the garden until his eyes fell on a small, soaked figure huddled by the hedge. She looked impossibly fragile. Dirt on her face, knees scraped, hair plastered to her forehead. Her wide brown eyes stared at him with equal parts fear and hope. He stepped closer, his voice softer than he expected. What did you say? She swallowed hard. The doghouse. Please. I won't make trouble. I just need to sleep. For a long moment, Damian could only stare. He had closed deals worth billions, spoken at conferences where every word mattered, yet he had never felt more unprepared than he did standing before this trembling child. Finally, he crouched down to her level. Rain dripped from his hair as he asked gently, What's your name? She hugged the rabbit tighter. Isabella. Isabella, he repeated, as if testing the sound. There's no dog here, but there's a warm house. Would you like to come inside instead? Her eyes widened. Inside? Me? Yes. You don't belong out here in the cold. She hesitated, glancing at her muddy feet. But I'll make everything dirty. Damian's throat tightened. Furniture, carpets, marble, none of it mattered. Not compared to this. Furniture can be cleaned, he said softly. You can't. Come. Slowly, carefully. Isabella stepped forward, leaving small wet footprints across the stone path as Damian led her into Grand Hale Estate. The heavy doors of the Hale Estate swung shut behind them, muffling the storm. Isabella stood frozen in the entry hall, dripping rainwater onto the polished marble floor. She gazed upward at the towering ceilings, the glittering chandelier, the sweeping staircase. It felt less like a house and more like a palace. Her first instinct was to retreat. She wasn't supposed to be here. Someone like her, barefoot, dirty, ragged, didn't belong in such a place. But Damian's calm presence anchored her. He hung his coat, then crouched so their eyes met again. You're safe now, he said, but you're freezing. Come, let's get you warm. He guided her down the hall to the guest wing, where a spacious bathroom gleamed with marble tiles and gold fixtures. Steam rose as he turned on the bath. Isabella's eyes widened in disbelief. Warm water for me, she whispered. Damian paused. What kind of life had she lived, that even hot water was a luxury? He only nodded. Yes, for you. While the tub filled, he fetched soft towels and one of his shirts. Far too big, but clean and dry. Isabella stood hesitantly by the door until he reassured her. "Take your time. I'll wait outside." When she finally emerged, her tangled hair damp and her thin frame swallowed in his shirt, she looked like a different child. Not polished, not transformed, but lighter, as though some of the grime of her past had been washed away. Damian smiled gently. "Better?" She nodded shyly, clutching the toy rabbit again. "Good. Now how about something to eat?" The kitchen was vast, filled with stainless steel appliances and shelves stocked with the finest ingredients. Isabella perched nervously at the counter stool, her small legs dangling. Damian, who hadn't cooked in years, managed to put together hot chocolate and warm cookies. The moment she tasted the drink, her eyes fluttered shut. She sipped slowly, savoring it as if it were nectar. Then, without thinking, she slipped half a cookie into her pocket. Damian noticed. "Why hide it?" She looked down, embarrassed. "For later, in case there isn't more." His chest ached at her words. She had lived in a world where the next meal was never promised. "There will always be more here," he said firmly. "You don't need to save it." Her lips trembled in a small smile, though she kept the cookie hidden anyway. When her stomach was full and her eyelids heavy, she whispered, "Can I sleep on the couch?" "The couch?" Damian shook his head. "You deserve a real bed." Her eyes widened again. "A bed? For me?" "Yes. Come." He led her to the guest bedroom. All soft blankets, plum pillows, and a window overlooking the stormy coast. She crawled onto the bed as though she might be punished for it. But when she felt the warmth surround her, she sighed deeply. "Thank you, Mr. Damian," she murmured. Within moments, she was asleep, her toy rabbit clutched tight. Damian lingered in the doorway, watching her small chest rise and fall. Something shifted inside him that night. For years, his life had been filled with numbers, deals, properties, things that glittered but never warmed him. But this child, asking only for a doghouse, had cracked open something he thought long dead, his heart. Sunlight streamed through the windows the next morning, scattering golden light across the grand halls. For the first time in years, Damian found himself awake early not because of business calls, but because he wanted to see if Isabella was all right. He found her in the dining room, sitting stiffly at the edge of a massive chair, staring at the silverware like it was a puzzle she couldn't solve. "You don't have to be nervous," Damian said as he entered. "It's just breakfast." The housekeeper had prepared fresh croissants, eggs, fruit, and milk. Isabella ate carefully, one bite at a time, and again tried to slip an apple slice into her pocket. Damian reached across the table, gently touching her hand. "You don't have to keep saving food. You're not going hungry anymore." Her brown eyes met his, searching for truth. Slowly, she let the apple slice fall back to plate. After breakfast, he surprised her. "We're going to Milan today." Her brows furrowed. "Milan?" "For clothes," he explained. "That shirt won't do forever." She shook her head quickly. "No, I don't need more. This is fine." Damian smiled faintly. "You deserve more than fine." The shopping trip was overwhelming for Isabella. She had never set foot in a place so dazzling. Rows of elegant boutiques, polished floors, mannequins dressed in gowns worth more than she could imagine. Salespeople stared, some frowning at her shabby appearance, until they noticed Damian Hale by her side. Suddenly, doors opened, smiles appeared, and racks of children's clothing were brought forth. But Isabella's hand trembled as she reached for the cheapest dress, a simple pale yellow cotton frock. "This one's enough." Damian crouched beside her. "Isabella, you don't have to choose the cheapest." Her voice was small. "It's already too much." He studied her for a long moment, then nodded. "We'll take it, but we'll take others too." She wanted to argue, but something in his steady gaze silenced her. For the first time, she began to believe maybe she was worth more than scraps. Yet, as they left the boutique, Isabella's body stiffened. Across the street, she saw them, two men, one tall with a thick beard, Marcus Doyle, the other thinner, shifty-eyed, Jonas Price. Her heart pounded. She grabbed Damian's sleeve. "It's them." Marcus's grin widened as he recognized her. There's our little stray. Damian instinctively stepped in front of Isabella. Stay behind me. Marcus chuckled. She belongs to us. Hand her over. She owes. Owes. Damian's voice was ice. Jonas sneered. Debts must be paid. She knows. Isabella shook her head violently, tears welling. No, please don't let them. Damian's glare could have frozen stone. She's not yours. Not anymore. Marcus smirked. Everyone has a price, Hale. Even a child. Damian pulled Isabella close. And some things are not for sale. He guided her quickly into the waiting car, his jaw tight. But as the vehicle pulled away, he knew this wasn't over. Back at the estate, Isabella clung to Damian's side like a shadow. The encounter in Milan had shaken her, and though she didn't say aloud, Damian could tell she was terrified that the men would return. The following week, a visitor arrived, Elena Moretti, a social worker, a poised woman in her 30s. She carried a leather satchel and a professional calm that seemed to fill the room. Mr. Hale, she began, I've been informed that a young girl has been staying with you. The authorities must ensure her safety. Damian bristled. He wasn't fond of bureaucratic interference. But Isabella's trembling hand in his made him soften. Elena knelt before the child. Hello, Isabella. How do you feel here? Isabella's eyes darted between them. Then in a whisper, she said, Please, don't send me away. Mr. Damian takes care of me. Elena's expression softened. I'm not here to take you away if you're safe. I only need to know the truth. For the first time, Damian felt a flicker of trust toward the stranger. But trust was short-lived when another visitor arrived days later, his sister, Victoria Hale. Victoria swept into the estate like a storm, her designer heels clicking across the marble. Sharp-featured, impeccably dressed, and fiercely protective of the family name, she wasted no time. Damian, this situation is untenable. A street child in your house? Do you realize the scandal if the press discovers this? Damian folded his arms. This isn't about the press. It's always about the press, she snapped. Our reputation, our investments. Victoria, he cut her off, voice low with steel. I will not discard a child to save face. She scoffed. So you'll play father now? What happens when she brings danger to our door? At that, Isabella flinched. Damian's hand found hers. Then I'll face it, not her. For once, Victoria had no retort, but her eyes warned. This would not end quietly. The danger came sooner than anyone expected. One afternoon, Elena accompanied Isabella to a routine medical checkup in town. The clinic was crowded, the air filled with chatter and the beeping of machines. Isabella clutched her rabbit tightly, uneasy in the unfamiliar space. When Elena stepped away briefly to sign papers, everything happened at once. A rough hand grabbed Isabella's arm. She screamed, but the sound was muffled by a cloth pressed against her mouth. By the time Elena turned back, the chair was empty. Her heart dropped. Panic surged through her veins as she bolted outside, scanning the street. Too late, a black van sped away, tires screeching. Back at the estate, Damian's face turned to stone when he received the call. A voice, low and mocking, echoed through the line. Mr. Hale, if you want your little pet back, you'll pay. It was Marcus Doyle. The demand was 50,000 euros. But by the next morning, another message came. Barcelona, the docks, 100,000 euros. Bring it, or she disappears forever. Elena urged the police to intervene. You can't negotiate with men like this. But Damian's voice was cold steel. If I involve them, she could be killed. I'll go. The docks of Barcelona reeked of salt and oil. The night was heavy with fog as Damian approached the warehouse, a duffel bag of cash in his hand. Inside, the shadows stirred. Isabella sat bound to a chair, her small face streaked with tears but her spirit unbroken. When she saw him, her eyes lit with desperate hope. Mr. Damian! Marcus Doyle stepped forward, grinning. Jonas Price lingered behind him, nervously shifting. Well, the mighty Damian Hale. Marcus sneered. All this wealth, and yet you care for a rat from the streets? She's not yours, Damian said, Voice low. Marcus tapped the knife in his hand. Everything has a price. Even her. Isabella's voice rang out suddenly. That's not true. Everyone froze. The little girl's voice trembled, but she pressed on. Your name isn't Marcus Doyle, she said. It's Marcus DeLuca. You have a daughter. She goes to St. Marie's School in Nice. And Jonas, your mother is sick in Naples. She needs medicine. Jonas's face went pale. Marcus's grin faltered. Damian stared at Isabella in awe. Somehow, through scraps of overheard conversations during her time captive, she had pieced together their secrets. The men's resolve cracked. Jonas muttered, Marcus, maybe we should. But before Marcus could respond, sirens wailed outside. Police lights flared through the fog. Damn it! Marcus cursed, shoving the knife into his belt. This isn't over. The men fled through a side exit as officers stormed the warehouse. Damian rushed to Isabella, cutting her ropes. She flung her arms around him, sobbing into his chest. I knew you'd come, she whispered. He held her tight, his own voice breaking. No one will ever take you from me again. The weeks following Barcelona were a blur of hearings, paperwork, and quiet healing. Isabella stayed close to Damian at all times, as if afraid that if she let go, the shadows would come back for her. But gradually, with each day in the safety of the Hale estate, her fear gave way to something new, belonging. The adoption hearing was set in Paris. The courtroom, though formal, felt more like a sanctuary that morning. Isabella wore a pale blue dress chosen especially for her, the kind of dress she had once only seen hanging in store windows. She held her rabbit in one hand, Damian's hand in the other. The judge peered down at them over her glasses. Isabella, you understand what today means? This man wishes to be your father in the eyes of the law. Isabella nodded shyly. And is that what you want? For a moment, the courtroom seemed to hold its breath. Isabella looked up at Damian. He was not a perfect man. He had built walls of steel around himself for decades, but he was a man who had bent down in the rain and listened when she asked for nothing more than a doghouse. Her voice, soft but clear, rang out. Yes, I want to live with Mr. Damian, with my dad. Damian's composure, so legendary in boardrooms and negotiations, shattered. Tears spilled down his face as he pulled her close. For the first time in his life, the word father belonged to him. The judge's gavel came down. So ordered. From this day forward, Isabella Hale is the daughter of Damian Hale. Applause broke out in the courtroom, even from Elena Moretti, who had remained the impartial social worker until now. Even Victoria Hale, Damian's formidable sister, dabbed at her eyes discreetly. Life at the Hale estate changed in ways Damian could never have foreseen. The once silent halls now rang with laughter and childish chatter. The garden that had stood immaculate but lifeless became Isabella's playground, dotted with toys, chalk drawings, and flower beds she insisted on planting herself. Victoria, once skeptical, found herself softening under Isabella's charm. She had resisted the disruption this child represented, but in time, she saw the truth. Isabella had not ruined the family's reputation. She had redeemed it. Damian, transformed by fatherhood, shifted his empire's priorities. Profit still mattered, but they were no longer the measure of his worth. He launched Isabella's Haven, a foundation dedicated to building shelters and safe houses for vulnerable children. The first was established in Naples, Jonas Price's home city, ensuring that the cycles of neglect Isabella had endured would be broken for others. Months later, on a serene spring morning, Isabella came to Damian with a hammer and nails clutched awkwardly in her hands. "What's this?" Damian asked, amused. "I want to build something in the garden," she said, determination shining in her eyes. Together, they worked side by side, Damian guiding her small hands as they constructed a simple wooden doghouse. They painted it bright white, with flowers stenciled around the edges. When it was finished, Isabella placed a plaque on the front. The words, carved with care, read, "For every child still searching for a home." Damian crouched beside her, reading the inscription. His voice thick with emotion, he whispered, "You asked me once for a doghouse, but instead you gave me a home." Isabella smiled, slipping her small hand into his. No, Dad, you gave me family. The garden, once silent and empty, now echoed with laughter. The house, once a fortress of solitude, had become a home. And a man who once thought himself untouchable had learned the truth. Wealth could build empires, but love built legacies. What began with a trembling child asking to sleep in a doghouse became a story that reshaped not only a billionaire's life, but also the lives of countless children who would one day find refuge in Isabella's haven. Damian Hale had found what money could never buy: a daughter's love, a reason to wake each morning with purpose, and a chance to rewrite his life's meaning. And Isabella, once a nameless child in the rain, had become more than a survivor. She had become the heart of family, the spark of movement, and proof that sometimes the smallest voices carry the power to change the greatest destinies.